You know what they say about luck running out? Well, mine didn't just run out, it packed its bags, left a sarcastic note, and moved to another galaxy. There I was, Captain Jake Morrison, though everyone calls me lucky ironic, right? Floating dead in space with my cargo hauler making sounds like a dying walrus having an existential crisis. The Millennium Rust Bucket, my pride and shame, had decided that the middle of Zephyrian territory was the perfect place to throw in the towel. Steam was pouring out of the engine compartment, and the life support system was playing a cheerful tune that roughly translated to "You're going to die soon, have a nice day." That's when she showed up. The Zephyrian patrol ship materialized out of hyperspace like a metallic angel of doom, but all sleek curves and enough weaponry to turn my ship into a very expensive cloud of space dust. Before I could even think about running, not that running was an option with my engines making those delightful dying animal noises, my comm system crackled to life. Unidentified human vessel, this is Commander Zara Vex of the Zephyrian Defense Fleet. You are trespassing in restricted space. Prepare to be boarded. Her voice had that crisp, professional tone that suggested she alphabetized her laser rifles and ironed her space uniforms. You know the type. 10 minutes later, I'm standing in my own cargo bay watching a walking work of art stride through my airlock. Commander Zara Vex was purple, and I mean properly purple, like a sunset on a planet with too much atmosphere. She had 4 arms, each one probably capable of bench pressing my entire ship, and eyes that glowed with the kind of intensity that suggested she took her job very, very seriously. She was also gorgeous in that I could kill you 17 different ways before breakfast sort of way. Human, she announced, pointing what looked like a really unfriendly laser cannon in my general direction, by the laws of the Zephyrian Empire. You will kneel and submit to interrogation. I looked at her. I looked at the gun. I looked at her again. Then I did what any reasonable human would do in that situation. I laughed. Yeah, that's not going to happen, gorgeous. The expression on her face was priceless. All 4 eyes went wide, and her weapon actually wavered slightly. It was like I'd just told her that gravity was optional and mathematics was more of a suggestion. Excuse me? She said, and I could practically hear her worldview creaking under the strain. Look, Commander Vex, can I call you Zara? I'm going to call you Zara. Here's the thing about humans. We don't really do the whole kneeling thing unless we're proposing marriage or looking for a contact lens. It's not personal, it's just cultural differences. She stared at me like I was speaking in ancient Klingon, which, for all I knew, I might as well have been. All sentient beings kneel before Zephyrian authority, she said slowly, as if explaining basic physics to a particularly dim asteroid. Well, I said, crossing my arms and giving her my best devil-may-care grin, congratulations! You just met your first human. The standoff that followed was probably the most awkward moment in the history of interstellar diplomacy. Zara kept her weapon trained on me, but I could see the gears turning behind those glowing eyes. She was clearly running through her entire manual of what to do when aliens don't follow basic protocol, and coming up empty. This is highly irregular, she muttered, and I caught her glancing around my cargo bay like she was looking for hidden cameras, or maybe a sign that said Punked, Galactic Edition. Hey, Irregular is my middle name. Well, actually it's Robert, but Irregular sounds cooler. I gestured toward my smoking engine compartment. Look, Zara, I'd love to continue this cultural exchange, but my ship is currently doing a very convincing impression of a supernova. Mind if I try to fix it before we all become very attractive space debris? Before she could answer, a hatch in the floor popped open and Gleep emerged. Gleep was my mechanic, a Blaronian who looked like someone had crossed a ferret with an anxiety disorder and given it opposable thumbs. His fur was standing on end, which in Gleep's case meant either he was terrified or had stuck his finger in an electrical socket again. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, Gleep chittered, his 3 eyes darting between me and Zara. Lucky, why is there a heavily armed Zephyrian officer in ER cargo bay? Are we being arrested? Are we going to prison? Do Zephyrian prisons have decent Wi-Fi? Calm down, Gleep. Commander Vex here is just confused because I won't kneel. Apparently it's a thing. Gleep's middle eye focused on Zara while the other two kept spinning like tiny radar dishes. Oh, the submission posture. Yes, very important in Zephyrian culture. Shows respect for authority and acknowledgement of superior firepower. He paused, then looked at me with something approaching horror. Wait, you didn't kneel? Nope. Nope. But that's social suicide. That's like telling a Plutonian their tentacles look fat. Zara's weapon lowered slightly. Your mechanic understands proper protocol. Why don't you? Because I'm human, I said, grabbing a wrench and heading toward the engine compartment. We're weird like that. We tend to stand up when everyone else tells us to kneel down. It's gotten us into trouble before. I started tinkering with the hyperdrive coupling, which was making a sound like a cat trying to sing opera. Badly. See, the way we figure it, if you want respect, you earn it. Mutual respect. I respect that you could vaporize me, you respect that I'm not actually trying to cause trouble, and we go from there. Zara followed me, keeping her weapon at the ready but looking more confused than threatening. This is not how first contact scenarios are supposed to proceed. Yeah, well, welcome to humanity. We don't really follow the manual. A shower of sparks erupted from the engine, and I barely ducked in time. Gleep, can you hand me the quantum spanner? The one that doesn't bite. They all bite, lucky. It's what makes them quantum. Zara watched this exchange with growing bewilderment. Are all humans this chaotic? Oh, this is nothing, Gleep piped up helpfully. You should see him when he's actually trying to cause trouble. Last month he started a bar fight on Kepler Station by accident. Turns out telling a Rigelian that Earth has better pizza is considered a declaration of war. It wasn't my fault their pizza was terrible, I protested, wrestling with a particularly stubborn power coupling. What kind of civilized species puts tentacles on pizza? The kind that will kill you for insulting their cuisine, Gleep muttered. Zara's second set of arms, the smaller, more dexterous ones, unconsciously moved to help steady a loose panel I was working on. The moment she realized what she was doing, she snatched them back like she'd touched something radioactive. I was not. That was merely, she sputtered. Helping, I finished with a grin. It's okay, Zara. It's another human thing. We're contagious like that. Just as I was starting to think this whole first contact thing might actually work out, the universe decided to remind me why my nickname was ironic rather than prophetic. The proximity alarms started shrieking like banshees with dental problems, and Gleep's fur immediately stood up so straight he looked like he'd been electrocuted. Oh no, oh no, oh no, he chittered, scrambling toward the sensor console. Lucky we've got company. Big company. Ugly company. Company that wants to turn us into component atoms. I looked up from the engine I'd been sweet-talking back to life. How big are we talking, Gleep? 3 heavy cruisers, 2 destroyers, and what appears to be a really angry space station. Zara's weapon snapped up, but not at me this time. All 4 of her arms were suddenly in motion, checking her equipment and accessing her comm system. Who would dare attack a Zephyrian patrol ship? The answer came in the form of a transmission that made my blood run cold and my insurance premiums skyrocket just by existing. Well, if it isn't Lucky Morrison and his collection of spare parts. The voice belonged to Captain Snacks, a Krillian pirate who looked like someone had crossed a shark with a bad attitude and given it access to military-grade weaponry. And what's this? A pretty purple Zephyrian? This just keeps getting better. Zara's eyes went wide. Captain Snacks X? But he's supposed to be in maximum security detention on Proxima V. Yeah, about that, Snacks's voice crackled through the speakers with malicious glee. Turns out prison food doesn't agree with me. So I left, violently, and now I have some unfinished business with our mutual friends here. I felt Zara's gaze boring into me. What unfinished business? Oh, you know, the usual, I said, trying to sound casual while my hands flew over the engine controls. I may have accidentally prevented him from stealing a very important cultural artifact from Earth. And by prevented, I mean I blew up his ship, stole his treasure, and left him floating in space in his underwear. His underwear. Men. Krillians wear surprisingly practical undergarments. Gleep popped up from behind a control panel. Don't forget the part where you broadcast the whole thing on 17 different news networks. That was an accident. And the part where you used his own ship's PAW system to play comedic music while he floated there. Okay, that part was on purpose. Zara stared at me like she was reassessing everything she thought she knew about humans, possibly life in general, and definitely her career choices. You humiliated one of the most dangerous pirates in the galaxy. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds kind of stupid. Kind of. Another transmission cut through our cultural exchange. Enough chit-chat. Morrison, you cost me my ship, my crew, and my dignity. The Zephyrian cost me 6 months of my life in that prison hellhole. I'm going to enjoy watching both of you become space dust. The first energy blast shook my ship like a paint mixer having a seizure. Zara immediately moved into action, her training kicking in despite the completely insane situation she'd found herself in. Your ship won't survive another hit like that, she said, all 4 arms working different control systems with practiced efficiency. My patrol vessel has better shielding, but it's not built for sustained combat against those odds. So what do you suggest, Commander? She looked at me, and for the first time since she'd boarded my ship, her expression wasn't one of confused authority or cultural bewilderment. It was the look of someone who'd made a decision that went against everything she'd been taught. We run. I grinned. Now you're speaking my language. But first, she continued, we need to work together. Your ship's speed combined with my tactical systems might give us a chance. Might? I'm trying to be optimistic. It's not natural for me. Another blast rocked us, and I could see Snacks's ships moving into attack formation outside the viewports. They looked mean, ugly, and very capable of turning us into the kind of light show that nobody survives to appreciate. Gleep, I shouted. How's that engine looking? Like a miracle held together with spare parts and wishful thinking. Perfect. That's exactly what we need right now. What happened next could charitably be described as controlled chaos, though controlled was doing a lot of heavy lifting in that description. I slammed the Millennium Rust bucket into gear, just as Zara synchronized her ship's defensive systems with mine, creating a formation that probably violated several laws of physics and definitely violated proper military protocol. This is insane, Zara muttered, but I noticed she was grinning. It was the kind of grin that suggested she was discovering something about herself that her military training had never covered. Insane is what humans do best, I replied, throwing us into a corkscrew maneuver that sent Gleep flying across the cargo bay with a series of creative profanities in at least 4 languages. The asteroid field ahead of us looked like a cosmic obstacle course designed by someone with serious anger management issues. Rocks the size of small moons tumbled through space in patterns that would make a mathematician weep and a pilot reconsider their career choices. You can't possibly be thinking of flying through that, Zara said, though her tactical systems were already calculating trajectories and plotting escape routes. Oh, I'm not thinking it, I said, pulling us into a dive that made the ship's hull groan in protest. I'm doing it. Behind us, Snacks's fleet was gaining ground, their heavy weapons turning chunks of space into very pretty light shows that would have been beautiful if they weren't trying to kill us. Lucky. Gleep called out from where he was clinging to a support beam like a furry barnacle. The engine is overheating. We're running at 110% capacity. What's the maximum safe operating level? Zara asked. About 80%. Gleep replied cheerfully. So we're running at 130% over the safe limit? Welcome to flying with humans. I laughed, spinning us between two asteroids that had been playing cosmic bumper cars for probably a million years. Zara, I'm going to need you to target that cluster of rocks at bearing 27 Mark IV. That will cause a cascading collision that could destroy half the asteroid field. Exactly. She stared at me for a moment, then her grin got wider. Humans are completely insane. And you love it. Me. The look she gave me right then could have powered a small star. Targeting now. Yeah. Her weapon systems locked onto the asteroid cluster with Zephyrian precision, but there was something else in the way she handled the controls. Something that suggested she was letting go of a lifetime of by-the-book thinking and embracing the kind of creative destruction that humans specialized in. Fire when ready, I said, lining us up for what would either be a brilliant escape or a spectacular death. Firing. Wang Tor. The coordinated blast turned the asteroid cluster into a celestial fireworks display that would have been gorgeous if we hadn't been flying through it at speeds that made light to jealous. Chunks of rock exploded outward in a chain reaction that created a temporary barrier between us and Snacks's fleet. That was, Zara paused, searching for words. Completely against regulations? I suggested. Brilliant, she finished, and the way she said it made something warm and dangerous bloom in my chest. Behind us, we could hear Snacks's furious voice over the comm. You think a few rocks will stop me, Morrison? I'll blast through this debris field and use your ship for target practice. He's really not very nice, Gleep observed, finally letting go of his support beam. Yeah, well, pirates generally aren't known for their winning personalities, I replied, checking our sensors. Zara, how's your ship holding up? Better than it should be, she admitted. Your unconventional flying style is effective. Is that Zephyrian for impressively reckless? It's Zephyrian for I'm beginning to understand why humans are considered dangerous. Dangerous? I feigned hurt. We prefer creatively unpredictable. She actually laughed, and the sound was like music in the middle of our high-speed chase through a cosmic demolition derby. You realize this partnership is completely against protocol. The best partnerships usually are. Another volley of enemy fire lit up the space behind us, but we were pulling ahead now, the combination of human unpredictability and Zephyrian precision proving to be more effective than either of us had expected. So I said, trying to sound casual while navigating between rocks that could squash us like bugs, what happens after we get out of this? Assuming we survive? I'm an optimist. You're insane. Same thing, really. She was quiet for a moment, her forearms working in perfect coordination as she managed her ship's systems. I'll probably face a court-martial for unauthorized cooperation with a foreign national. And it'll be worth it. Just when I thought we might actually make it out of this cosmic game of deadly tag, the universe decided to throw us one final curveball. Instead of following us through the asteroid field like any self-respecting pirate would do, Snacks had gone around it. He was waiting for us on the other side with all the patience of a predator who'd finally cornered his prey. Surprise, Morrison. His voice crackled through our communications with malicious glee. Did you really think I got to be the most feared pirate in 3 sectors by being stupid? Actually, yeah, I replied, but my heart was sinking as I saw his ships arranged in a perfect ambush formation. I figured stupidity was a job requirement. Funny. Let's see how funny you are when I'm using your ship for scrap metal. But here's the thing about Snacks. For all his reputation as the most dangerous pirate in the galaxy, he had one fatal flaw. He was a show-off. Instead of just blowing us to smithereens like any practical villain would do, He had to explain his master plan. You see, Morrison, you and your purple friend here have been very useful to me. All this time you thought I was after revenge, but revenge is just a bonus. I've been tracking you because you have something I want. Zara's eyes went wide. The artifact you stole from him. What artifact? I asked, genuinely confused. The one from Earth. Snacks's voice was getting excited now, which was never a good sign when dealing with megalomaniacal pirates. The ancient relic that grants ultimate power to whoever possesses it. I looked at Zara. Zara looked at me. Gleep looked at both of us and then started making that chittering sound he made when he was trying not to laugh. Oh no, I said slowly. Oh, Snacks, you beautiful, idiotic fishman. You don't mean... The sacred orb of infinite knowledge, Snacks shouted triumphantly. The mysterious sphere that your species has hidden away, the key to unimaginable power. The silence that followed was broken only by Gleep finally losing control and dissolving into chittering laughter. Snacks, I said gently, buddy pal, old friend who wants to kill me, that's a magic 8-ball. A what? A toy. A children's toy. You fill it with blue liquid and plastic dice, shake it, and it gives you random answers to yes or no questions. We sell them in gas stations for $3. The pause that followed was probably the longest in recorded galactic history. You're lying, Snacks said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. Outlook not so good, I quoted. That is not my sources point to yes. Ask again later. Those are the kinds of ultimate cosmic wisdom we're talking about here. What? The roar that came through the speakers probably shattered windows on 3 nearby planets. Oh, this is beautiful, Zara said, and I could see her military tactical mind working. He's completely unhinged now. She was right. Snacks's fleet was breaking formation, moving erratically as their leader processed the fact that he'd spent 6 months planning revenge over a toy that cost less than a cup of coffee. This is our chance, I said. When someone's having an existential crisis, they're not thinking tactically. Agreed. But we still need to neutralize his fleet. Leave that to me. I opened a channel to Snacks's flagship. Hey, Snacks, you want to know the really funny part? I'm going to turn you into atoms. The really funny part is that I don't even have it anymore. I gave it to my nephew for his birthday. He's 8. He uses it to decide whether he wants chocolate or vanilla ice cream. The sound that came through the speakers wasn't really a roar anymore. It was more like the dying cry of a wounded ego. And that's when Zara did something that was either brilliant or insane, though with her. I was learning those were often the same thing. She broadcast a message to Snacks's entire fleet. Attention all vessels, her voice rang out with calm, professional authority. This is Commander Zara Vex of the Zephyrian Defense Fleet. You are following a leader who has just discovered he's been chasing a children's toy for months. I suggest you consider whether this is the career path you really want to pursue. One by one, Snacks's ships began to peel away from the formation. Pirates, it turns out, have a very practical attitude toward leadership. When your captain reveals himself to be completely unhinged over a magic 8-ball, it's time to find new employment. Within minutes, only Snacks's flagship remained, and even that was listing badly as what I assumed was a mutiny played out on his bridge. You know what the best part of this is? I asked Zara as we watched the last of the pirate fleet disappear into hyperspace. What's that? I was wrong about the magic 8-ball. I do still have it. It's in my quarters helping me decide what to have for breakfast. She stared at me for a moment, then burst out laughing. It was the kind of laugh that could power a small city and probably violated several Zephyrian regulations about proper emotional control. Humans, she said, shaking her head, are completely impossible. Is that good or bad? Ask me again later. 3 days later, I was standing in what could generously be called a courtroom, and more accurately described as a space station conference room with delusions of grandeur. The Zephyrian High Command had decided that my little adventure with Commander Vex required an official inquiry, which in galactic bureaucratic terms meant a lot of very serious purple people asking very serious questions about very silly events. Zara stood at attention before a panel of judges who looked like they'd been carved from stone and painted purple by someone with no sense of humor. She'd been charged with unauthorized cooperation with an alien species, deviation from established protocol, and my personal favorite, excessive creativity in tactical situations. Commander Vex, the head judge intoned in a voice that could have been used to announce the end of the universe, you stand accused of abandoning proper procedure in favor of human methods. The way he said human methods made it sound like a communicable disease. Yes, sir, Zara replied, her forearms locked at her sides in perfect military posture. And how do you answer these charges? Guilty as charged, sir. And I'd do it again. The murmur that went through the assembled Zephyrian officials sounded like a hive of very confused bees. This was clearly not the response they'd been expecting. Commander. Mander. Another judge said, leaning forward with the kind of expression that suggested she was personally offended by the concept of fun, are you aware that your actions have created a diplomatic incident? The human government is now requesting formal meetings to discuss cultural exchange programs. Yes, sir. I'm aware. And you consider this a positive development? Before Zara could answer, I stood up from the gallery where I'd been trying to blend in with the furniture. If I may, Your Honors, I said, which caused another round of confused bee humming from the assembled officials. The human will remain silent, the head judge commanded. Yeah, about that, I said, walking toward the front of the room with what I hoped looked like confidence and probably looked like insanity. Here's the thing about humans and remaining silent. We're not really built for it. Guards. Wait, Zara said, and something in her voice made everyone pause. Let him speak. Commander, you are hardly in a position to make demands. I'm not making a demand, sir. I'm making a request. This human saved both our lives and potentially prevented a major pirate incursion into Zephyrian space. I think his perspective might be relevant. The head judge looked like he was suffering from severe indigestion, but he nodded. Very well. But be brief, human. Thank you. I cleared my throat and tried to remember the speech I'd been practicing. Then I threw it out the window and decided to wing it, because that's what humans do best. Your Honors, 3 days ago, your Commander Vex ordered me to kneel. I refused. Not because I don't respect her or your people, but because humans have a different way of showing respect. We believe that true respect happens between equals. I gestured toward Zara, who was still standing at rigid attention but whose eyes were focused on me with an intensity that made my heart do interesting things. When I refused to kneel, Commander Vex could have shot me. Instead, she lowered her weapon and tried to understand. When we faced a common enemy, she didn't hesitate to break protocol to work with me. And when we succeeded, she didn't take credit or try to minimize my contribution. I took a deep breath and played my final card. Your Honors, in the past 3 days, Commander Vex has shown me what Zephyrian honor really looks like. And I hope I've shown her what human dignity looks like. We're different species, but we want the same things: respect, cooperation. And maybe someone to watch our backs when the universe gets nasty. The silence that followed was the kind that suggested either deep thought or massive systemic failure. Finally, the head judge spoke. Commander Vex, do you have anything to add? Zara looked at me, then at the panel, then back at me. When she spoke, her voice was clear and steady. Yes, sir. I've learned that sometimes the best way to serve the Zephyrian Empire is to remember that we're part of a larger galaxy. Captain Morrison didn't kneel because he was offering me something better: partnership. And your recommendation? I recommend that we accept the human government's request for cultural exchange, and I volunteer to serve as the Zephyrian liaison. More bee humming from the gallery, but this time it sounded less confused and more intrigued. The judges retired to deliberate, which in Zephyrian terms meant they went into a back room and argued for 2 hours while I tried not to pace a hole in the floor. When they returned, the head judge looked like he'd aged a decade in 2 hours. The tribunal has reached a decision. Commander Vex, you are hereby reassigned to the newly created Department of Interspecies Relations. Your first assignment will be working with human representatives to establish formal diplomatic protocols. Zara's military composure cracked just enough to let a smile through. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Don't thank us yet, Commander. Your co-liaison will be Captain Morrison. I blinked. Wait, what? Congratulations, Captain. You're now officially a diplomat. But I don't know anything about being a diplomat. Neither do we, the judge replied with what might have been the first smile I'd seen from a Zephyrian official. We're all going to learn together. As we left the courtroom, Zara fell into step beside me. So, Ambassador Morrison, what's our first official act? Well, Ambassador Vex, I was thinking we could start with dinner. I know this great little place on Earth where they don't make you kneel to get a table. Sounds perfect. But Jake? Yeah? Next time someone asks you to kneel, maybe consider a compromise? I grinned and took her hand, the closest one of the four. How about I offer to stand beside them instead? I think, she said, squeezing my fingers with surprising gentleness, that could work. And as we walked away from the courtroom that had just changed both our lives, I realized that sometimes the best diplomatic relationships start with someone refusing to kneel and end with two people choosing to stand together. The universe, I decided, had a pretty good sense of humor after all.